I'm Lauren Kling, and this is 5 Things That Changed Your Life. Each episode, I sit down with a special guest and ask them to share 5 stories, events, or experiences that had an impact on their life, like a person who helped them decide a path to take, or a place that completely transformed the way they think. Perhaps it was inspiration from a family road trip or a childhood TV show that helped them to make the person they are today. This week's guest, Liz Femi.
One other thing that happened to me was when I was in college, I confused being good at something with having a passion for it. So I was doing really well in my pre-med classes, and I was a TA, and I was teaching biochemistry, microbiology, all that stuff. And what was interesting about that was, like, even though I would be in the lab, doing research, we were working with mice and mitochondria and all of that, and we would get these presentations at these conferences. But for me, it wasn't the results I was going to present that I found exciting. It was the presentation itself that I found exciting.
Liz is a Los Angeles-based actor who recently appeared in Judd Apatow's Netflix series Love and guest starred opposite David Duchovny in NBC's Aquarius. She's the writer and performer of the award-winning comedic solo show Take Me to the Poorhouse and is currently in production on the Netflix feature A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which comes out in 2017. As always, I am here with my co-producer, Alan. How you doing, Alan?
Doing good. Hello, Lauren. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends of the world.
I know. We are like, we're an episode away from the halfway point. We made it 6 episodes.
We should have a half party. So, right, we have 12 episodes in this first season. And today, this is episode number 5.
Well, we'll get to number 6 next week.
Yeah, okay. But this week, we have another actor and artist and creative person. Her name is Liz Femi.
Yeah, one of the things in knowing you getting to know you a lot better the last few weeks, you have a lot of really interesting friends, and and a lot of them are just like you, just emerging. They're just on the cusp of becoming great, I feel. And Liz was certainly one of those people.
Yeah, definitely. Liz is a wonderful person to have a conversation with. She's funny, she's interesting, she's thoughtful.
Yeah, and you can really tell by the 5 things she chose. Lauren, what were those 5 things?
Liz's 5 things are, number 1, self-inflicted nearsightedness. How she faked vision problems when she was a kid just to get glasses. I can't believe.
I know. I don't think I mentioned it in the thing, but I actually had to stop my daughter from attempting that.
I didn't know this was a thing.
And I have no idea. I never wanted glasses when I grew up. Okay, keep going.
So that was number 1. Number 2, deciding to become a teacher instead of a doctor, and how she decided to become an actor instead of a teacher. Number 3, the visa lottery, how her family won a green card to come live in the United States. Number 4, meeting her husband, and how sometimes you just need to eat a sandwich before taking over the world. And number 5, restless artist, unsure of how to move her career forward, yet itching to perform, how a class writing assignment became a one-person play.
Yeah, this was definitely one of my top 12 interviews that we did.
Yes. Here's one thing that's interesting is, as we're learning with all of these guests and those to come, everybody's story is different, and you don't have to be a famous person to have 5 interesting things or 10 interesting things happen to you. Everybody has an interesting story to tell, even when they don't think they do.
Yeah, and even more so. I mean, it'd be interesting to come back to Liz years from now and see, what are the new 5 things she might come up with.
Right. So anyway, that's our conversation with Liz Femi. Hope you enjoy it. So one thing that's not on your list, but I was curious about, you had mentioned that on the show Love, to which you appeared in the last 2 episodes of season 1, that role was just kind of not a throwaway, but what do you call a kind of role where it's just like a day player? It wasn't expected to return?
It really, it was initially a day player role. Like you said, I was supposed to just come in, do the thing, and then essentially serve that particular plot line.
Right.
And then I got a call the day before I was supposed to shoot that, they've offered you a second episode. So I was like, this is fun. This is kind of cool.
Right.
And then I got to set, did the thing. There wasn't really a breakdown, really, because what
Right.
happened was
And what's your character, or what does your character do?
her name's Liz. She's a writer's assistant on the show. So
Okay.
there's a show within the show called Wichita.
Yeah.
And so she works in that writer's room. So yeah, and then so I was offered the role, and then I didn't get the breakdown. I didn't even know what it was. I was going to get to set to figure out exactly what I would be doing. So, I mean, I got the script a day or two before, but then I read it, did the thing, and then we just were sort of getting into it and improving and making it more of a full person.
Right.
And after that, they're like, "Wow, I think she's a part of this room. I think we need her to come back and stay in the writers' room." So that was really cool.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that you took a role that really was a throwaway role
Essentially, yeah.
and made it something where they saw you put life into the role.
Yes. So when I got the role, it was just listed as writer's assistant, and so I was just a writer's assistant. And then we had a table read this past February, and we were doing the read through, and it says, "And Liz, the writer's assistant, enters." I was like, "Oh, they decided to name her Liz. How cool is that?" So
Yeah.
it's a pretty neat culture they have there, I think.
Cool.
The love crew.
The Love Crew, yes.
And then maybe you'll get promoted to full writer.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Well, just
really
keep
trying to
working
stay.
hard.
She's trying to stay in that room. You can tell from the episode. She's
Well,
she's
yeah.
trying to stick her talons in there.
She looks like she belongs there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, welcome to 5 Things That Changed Your Life, Liz.
Thank
Femi.
you for having me, Lauren.
Yes, I'm excited. You and I have known each other for, I want to say, 4 years.
Something like that. Yeah.
We're both in a group of actors, mastermind actors, which is just basically a hoity-toity word to say that we kind of pay money to sit in a room.
to get our act together. Essentially.
To kind of, when we need a shoulder to cry on, we're there. When we want to tout some cool things we've done and to encourage and inspire others, that also happens there.
It's a great space, but we definitely enjoy calling ourselves a mastermind group. As you said, it's a lofty name.
Yeah. Yes. So the first thing that you wrote that I wanted to talk about was you write self-inflicted nearsightedness. I faked vision problems when I was a kid just to get glasses. Ruined my eyesight. What the F?
Okay, so when I was a kid, I had these children's books that I would read, and I don't remember the series, but it was a British children's series, and in the books, there were these little girls, they were like essentially morality tales and things like that, but they always had glasses. They always had on glasses, and they were smart, and they were just something very compelling characters. And that was a single trait that they had. And I just felt like I wanted to be like these girls. I wanted to feel smart and curious and adventurous. So I told my mom, I was like, "Mom, I can't, I know I go to class. I'm like, I can't see the board. Their multiplication tables are on. I don't know, 4, 5, 7. I don't know what's happening." So she says, "Oh, well, that's kind of sudden. You've never had this issue, but let's go see an optometrist." So we go to the optometrist, and they're doing the vision test, with the letters across and the numbers. And I just faked my way through the entire thing. I was like, I just can't. I can't. All the way down. This is how I didn't even think of like a middle ground.
Right.
Or maybe read the middle part so you can just get a fair.
You were just going
average.
for Coke.
I was going for like
Coke lens.
Coke
Yeah,
lens.
Coke bottle lenses.
I was going in all the way to the last line. I think I pretended. I think I only allowed myself to read 1 or 2 letters.
Wow.
It was the E, wasn't it?
It was like the E or something, because I knew, like, as I was acting, so I knew I sort of had to. I couldn't, fake the entire thing. So like 1 or 2 were right.
How old were you when you were?
I was 7 when that happened.
7.
So I got my glasses, and then I put them on, but the strength, it was so strong, the prescription, that my eyes would start watering, and it was painful to wear them. So I would take them off, and my mom would be like, "You need to put your glasses back on right now. You can't see. What are you doing?" And I was like, yeah, that's right, Ma. Thanks for reminding me, and I can't see. So I would sit there watching television or doing my homework with these ridiculously high-strength glasses, ruining my sight for like 2 or 3 years straight. So that's essentially...
Until what happened?
And now I have to wear contacts. Now I'm nearsighted. I was 20/20.
Because of those glasses?
Because of those glasses that I inflicted on myself as a 7-year-old.
Well, you do have magical powers now, right?
Yeah, I know. Apparently, yes. Yeah, they
Wow.
only come out when I take out my contacts and I bump into things.
Now, would you consider that your first acting role
You know, I guess we could call it that. Yeah, definitely.
at 7?
Yeah, it was transformative.
But acting is not where you started. You wrote one of the 5 things that changed your life. Before you went to acting, you were a teacher. And before a teacher, you were a doctor. So let's go back to the beginning where you wrote deciding to become a teacher instead of a doctor. And you say, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X on an airplane and was practically doing flips in my seat. I was so restless about social justice that I decided to leave my intended medical career for a career in education.
Correct.
So there's a lot going on here.
Yes.
So I want to start with, was it an aisle seat, a middle seat, or a window seat?
I remember it being a window seat.
It was a window seat.
Yeah.
So that's a very reflective position on an airplane.
Yeah, really
Okay.
good. I looked
All right.
out the window and saw my future, and it wasn't headed where I wanted it to go.
So, but I'm going to assume that this wasn't the first and only thing that just made you decide you didn't want to be a doctor.
No, it wasn't. And this is actually, so 2 things. The autobiography of Malcolm X, the way, just his life story, a lot of what he brought up about like racial inequality and injustice in this country, and the idea that education is a way to bridge the gap across race and class, and it was just a really compelling idea to me. One of the ways to bridge the gap, anyway. But one other thing that happened to me was when I was in college, I confused being good at something with having a passion for it. So I was doing really well in my pre-med classes, and I was a TA, and I was teaching biochemistry, microbiology, all that stuff. And what was interesting about that was, like, even though I would be in the lab, you know, doing research, we were working with mice and mitochondria and all of that, and we would get these presentations at these conferences. But for me, it wasn't the results I was going to present that I found exciting. It was the presentation itself that I found exciting. So, you know, I'd have these like funny little silly jokes and, you know, try to get the audience all excited. I'm like, this is way more, I don't care about what I'm talking about. This is fun. So I started realizing that teaching / performance was something that just seemed more natural to me and something I was more drawn to. So I, you know, definitely knew I was not going to have a career in the lab, and I also knew that medicine probably wasn't the right thing for me either, just because it wouldn't give me that kind of, you know, facility, at least in my mind.
Right.
So when I went into teaching, oh God, it was so much fun and challenging. And what was great about that was it was a good opportunity for me to perform. But what my kids started to notice was that a lot of my lesson plans were all performative. Like, even if it were grammar or just definitions or like essay writing, they would say, Miss, why are we performing again? You're like, Miss, we just performed last week. What's going on, Miss? And so we actually did a whole semester of where we produced Romeo and Juliet. The entire 9th grade class. They were casting directors, producers.
Wow.
Actors. It was just exciting, and they went full throttle on that. And when I noticed that trend, I realized, okay, I love education and I love performance, but I think I needed to switch it so that performance would be what I did and education would be, you know, a second passion of mine as opposed to the primary passion.
So did you get a teaching credential?
I did. I got a master's in education. And I worked for a couple of years, and then I went back to school for acting.
So in a way, we've covered many years. It's not just one day I decided to go from...
Oh, gosh, no. We're talking from undergrad to grad to working to grad. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who go into college, don't know what they want to do, and some of them leave college still not knowing what they want to do.
Yeah, I feel like everyone is still figuring. I mean, it takes people who know what they want to do right away. I feel like are usually very lucky, you know.
Yeah.
But for most of us, you know, we change careers at least 2 or 3 times in our lives,
Right.
you know. So, yeah, being human is a complicated journey.
Yeah. Do you think we're too young when we go to college?
Yes.
To know, you think we should be older?
Oh my God, yes. I feel like now is when I should have gone to college, quite frankly. Gosh, I wish, which is ironic because part of what I do when I'm not acting is I help kids who are applying to colleges is I almost want to tell them, take a year or 2 off, you know, do what the Australians do, go on a walkabout, you know, you don't even have to join the Peace Corps, just do something, travel, you know?
Right.
It's just, I don't think our minds are that ready to do things fearlessly without seeking approval, without, you know, doing things because you think you should, like being a doctor because you think you should be a doctor or because it sounds good at a party to be a doctor or,
Right.
you know, or because everyone tells you to be a doctor. A lot of times the motivations that we have when we're so young in college, we haven't actually challenged our motivations. We don't even know what the source is. So I feel like it takes time, it takes life experience to really figure out what you're interested in, and then you can go to college to explore it.
Right. I don't necessarily think that you do, you know, kindergarten through 12, then immediately go to college.
Yeah.
You're 22, 23 when you graduate, and now all of a sudden you're supposed to have your whole life in order and everything you want to do.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it's like this weird, step-by-step thing. And I do this, and I get promoted, and I do this. And it's like, well, maybe or not.
Right. But also, we're kind of in that period where our parents are the ones that went to school, got a career, had the
Yeah.
job for 45, 50 years, got the
watch,
Rolex watch,
yep.
and then retired. And that doesn't happen with us.
No.
See, I
no,
think,
it doesn't.
I think a lot, like for my parents, going to college and school was a matter of survival.
Right.
But now it's like we're at this age where, you know, where we can choose a wide variety of occupations, especially ones that aren't big money makers like medicine, engineering, business, so to speak.
Right, the big 3. Right, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, I totally agree. You know, college, my master's degree, I think I got more out of it because it was something I wanted.
Yeah.
Versus my bachelor's degree, which was something that was expected for me to get.
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree. I don't. I'm like I majored in microbiology, and I'm like, why? Like, I mean, what was cool about that was I got to think differently for 4 years, like as a scientist, and
Right.
and I still love and appreciate science till today because of that. But I know that if I were going in today, I might have minored in that and done something else, you know. And
Right. Have you now in all of this time and all of this change and career change, have you ever used teaching and or your medical knowledge in acting?
ooh, that's a good question. Have I ever? I've never played a teacher. No. Nor have I played a scientist lab technician.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
So take note, Hollywood.
All of
has-
Hollywood
I
or
can-
Someone who has practical experience.
I will rock a lab. Let me
like
tell you.
well, who's the actor? Ken
Ken Jeong.
Jung, who was a medical doctor, and now
Now he plays one in a.
he plays one on a show.
I know.
But does your agent know that you have this background?
It's on my. I think it's on my skills. My list
No,
of skills.
no. That's a throwaway
to
part.
know. They need to know.
You
Like, do they know you can do surgery? Do they know that? you
Yeah, like I can do invasive surgery.
Well, I used to have a little magic kit when I was a kid. I think you need to come in with like a lab, a little mini science
Yeah,
lab,
exactly.
and set it on your agent's desk. Hopefully, they're there when you do this, and just tell them, I'm teaching you something.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
Lauren, your agent knows that you can do magic.
No, it's just written on the bottom of I
do magic in general.
resume. I have rollerblading on the bottom of, but I haven't rollerbladed in about 15 years. So does that count?
That actually reminds me of something. So one of the things on my list is poultry handling. Because when I spent some of my life in Nigeria, my mom owned a poultry while we were there. And I did some interview recently where I talked about how, I moonlight as a bookmaker and I'm a skilled poultry handler. And last night I woke up, I was like, wait a minute, skilled? I'm like, chick, that was 10 years ago. You might be barely proficient. You might run away from chickens at this point. Like, I haven't done anything with poultry. So it's so interesting how in my mind I thought, this would be a thing to let them know.
That's poultry handler.
Poultry handler,
We'll have
yeah.
to save that for another episode.
Yeah, I've got lots of chicken stories.
We'll come back to that. Now, you had mentioned that you spent some time in Nigeria, so your family's there. And one of the things you said that changed your life was that your family won a green card lottery to come live in the United States. So were you born in the United States or were you born in Nigeria?
I was actually born in England.
Okay.
I was born in Tottenham, North Middlesex. And North Middlesex Hospital, I should say. What else? And I was there for quite a while. I think I was in England until I was about 6 or so. And then we moved back to Nigeria for a bit. And then we came here. And at the time, from what I remember, the U.S. had sent, I don't know if it was like a bunch of visas out into the world. And you had to have the skill set to be able to come and work and live in the United States. And so if you met that criteria, you would enter into the lottery. And so my mother one day left the house. We didn't know where she was going. She went and filled this thing out. And then they came in and said she was eligible. And we found out we won.
Wow. What was it about the United States that your family was
drawn to? That's
to?
a good question, because the alternative might have been to go to England because I was a citizen, so I might have done what the immigrant kid typically does, which is leave home, go work, send money home, and then eventually bring people there if you can. That was the plan, sort of. But I think, we'd never been to the U.S., and it's just seemed like a good place to start new and go to school, especially.
Right.
My family at that point was going through quite a transition. The economy was terrible, and we were kind of middle class, and then things happened. My dad lost his job. My mom lost her shop. It was just a lot of turmoil at that point. So we didn't know what we were going to do, where our future was headed. And so this opportunity came up, and it just seemed like, that North Star, something to head towards.
Did you know where in the U.S.? Did they tell you
No.
where you can go?
We were.
Well, I don't know.
Dropped us up at the airport.
Did they?
You needed a sponsor, and my
Okay.
mom's cousin lived in Philadelphia,
Got
so
it,
he
okay.
was a sponsor. But he had a Section 8 home actually in Buffalo, New York, that had been no one was living there.
Okay.
So we sort of kind of fixed it up, and then we moved in there, and that was where it was.
Buffalo, New York was
Buffalo,
the
New York.
introduction to America.
Snow, 7 feet of snow was I mean, I lived in snow in England and stuff, but this was
Right.
like a whole nother level of
Right.
madness.
Okay. Were you still a child?
I was, I think it was probably like 12 or 13.
Okay.
Yeah. Childish, not much. Yeah.
Right. We're all kind of
We're all kind of childish.
Yeah. Okay, so you were still preteen,
Yeah.
still relying really on your parents. You
Yeah.
weren't at the point where we start to fight our parents and want to leave.
Oh, God, no. I wasn't really ever that rebellious a child, actually. I don't think I was. Well, no, it's not true. We'll save that for another time.
The other podcast.
That's a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast. I had my moments.
So in Buffalo, New York,
Mm-hmm.
what even got you to medical school? Was it something your parents wanted you to have?
When I remember the ride from the airport when my uncle picked us up and we were driving to Buffalo, and they just kept saying, in this country, you're going to be either go into medicine or you're going to be an engineer. Or you're gonna do that. And I was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll be a doctor. Like when I was in Nigeria, when I was a student, I was technically an art student. I did theater and I did I ran the school gallery. And so I never thought of myself as a doctor. But in that car ride that day, I said, I guess if that's what we have to do in the U.S., that's what people do here. I guess I'll be a doctor. So that's how that happened.
Wow. And your parents, did they have the support of their uncle financially to find work and kind of...
No, I think they might have given them like $100 and driven back to Philadelphia. My dad got a job. Well, my uncle's friend ran a cleaning company. So my dad worked with him as a janitor.
Okay.
And then my mom went to nursing school to be a CNA.
Okay.
The first time. So they sort of started from there. And then
What did they do in Nigeria?
my dad was a bank manager in Nigeria. And that was before that whole crash happened that I was talking about. And then when we came to the U.S., it was like, no, he was cleaning offices after hours. And then he got hired as a bank teller at, I think it was, I forget what bank that is.
That's okay.
Bank.
We probably
it
don't
was some
want-
bank. Yeah. Edit that. He became a
Or
bank
if any
teller.
bank wants to pay us, we'll mention
yes.
them as the bank.
So he started there, and then he moved to California and got a job, office administrative job out in California in a pharmaceutical company, and then we moved out to California after that.
From Buffalo.
From Buffalo.
Was that to Los Angeles?
Yes, LA.
And how was that? I mean, what did you know about LA before you got here? Did you know LA was Hollywood?
I kind of knew LA was Hollywood. I mean, I didn't think about it that way. I didn't want to be an actress or anything. I was in my medical school phase at that point. So, but I stayed on the East Coast to go to school while my family was here.
Okay.
But yeah, it was kind of weird. It's very different from the East Coast, But I liked it. It felt it was warmer.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And parts of the houses, some of the way the architecture has reminded me of Nigeria sometimes. It was kind of cool.
Interesting. Do you have you gone back to Nigeria as an
I
adult?
haven't been in a while. I went back last God, I want to go back so badly. Maybe 10 or 12 years ago. But I think I'm going to go next year.
Cool. When you go back, what is it when you go? I mean, is it just memories? Are there friends?
Yeah, I definitely have childhood friends. My aunt still lives there. I've got cousins. I've got cousins in Nigeria and in England, and so it's sort of spread.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely nostalgic, like going back to the streets you grew up on, and
Right.
it's the music or the food is where I lose my damn mind. I'll tell you that much.
Talk
Food
about the
is
food.
insane.
Talk about what is the food like?
Oh, it's just burst of everything flavor. There's like a stewed rice called jollof rice. It's like a rice made with chilies and tomato paste. There's the meat, like goat meat, and there's lots of vegetable stews and yams and porridge.
Wow.
And it's just a really rich, flavorful food, very savory.
Yeah. Have you found any grocery stores or restaurants in Los Angeles that come close?
Yes, I have. Yeah, there are a few favorites that I go to to satisfy that pang
for home
for
cooking.
home cooking.
Right.
Because my mom is not, no offense, mama. My mom is not that great a cook, so I usually have to go pay someone else.
Does she know that?
She knows.
Oh, okay.
I've expressed this to her my whole life.
Take some of that Uncle Ben's, mix it with Dinty Moore.
And I'm like, Mom, no, stop.
Oh, I always think about my stepfather would cook sometimes, and some of the things he made were misses, like the lamb burritos. He used to make these personal pizzas, which was a whole wheat pita with a bunch of dollops of, like, not pizza sauce, but I guess not spaghetti sauce, just like tomato paste.
What?
And then he would cut from blocks of cheese, so it would be razor thin on one side and like really thick. I cut onions that way. My wife hates the way I cut onions, but like a triangle of cheese. So
Whoa.
one piece of cheese would be really cooked and the other part would be not cooked. So
You guys ate that?
well, yeah. What was I going to do? It was,
It's so polite.
it's a prison sentence until you're 18 or 21, until your mom tracks you down at a bar in Simi Valley and makes you come home to fold your laundry. That's when it's Anyway, that's when I decided it was time to move out. But I digress. This isn't
See, my
about me.
dad, he's a really good cook. He makes Chinese food all the time. But I didn't realize how good of a cook he was until I moved to Orange County, where there is no good Chinese food.
Oh, wow.
You realize, what the authentic or how great authentic food is.
Funny, my dad is a great cook, too. I'll eat anything. I used to always be like, Mommy, please let Daddy cook, please. Just because. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's funny. Another category that we're very interested in is, you said, meeting my husband. Sometimes you need to eat a sandwich before taking over the world. You have a very great way of making every one of your things sound very intriguing.
Thank you.
I feel manipulated.
I know. It's like, what does she mean?
I know.
It's so vague.
It's like if you took out one word from each of these, it would be like, we've heard the story. But, you throw sandwich and husband together and you're like, tell me more.
And
Or
tell
worse,
me
taking
more.
over the world and husband.
And husband. It's so funny because my what I was really going for is the fact that my husband and I are very different in the sense that, I'm very like, I want to do this and and I get crazy with ideas and all the things I want to do. And he'd be like, that's great. How about we eat a sandwich first? He has this wonderful presence that really grounds me. Mm-hmm. And I remember just feeling, when we met in Boston, it was some theater thing that was happening. The Russians came to town, I like to say.
Okay.
They'd come from the Moscow Art Theater to teach a summer program, and we were living in this same living space, and we met in there was a massage line of actors, right? Giving each other a massage in a line, and he apparently had scoped me out, and they came and said they'd give me a massage. And then we just started talking, and he helped me move, and we started dating. And I just noticed that every time I would run myself, tired from my ambition or from assignments in school and things like that, he would just has this way of reminding me that life doesn't have to be that crazy. Life is now. Life is relationship. Life is, pleasure. Life is, and I just... It makes me feel alive, it makes me feel grateful, it makes me feel present, makes me feel enough, not everything's in the future. So we sort of balance each other really well that way.
And what do you think your strengths are for him?
To complement that.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think that I am I throw in a little bit of adventure here and there, and I definitely tend to, I tend to act before I think sometimes, and that can lead to interesting things, interesting moments and surprise. And so I think it's a good balance for both of us to, we might just get in the car and then drive and end up in, Orange County or something. Maybe not Orange County, but we might drive and end up like Ohio.
You can go there.
I know, I'm just kidding.
There might not be
I
great
love you,
Chinese
OC.
food.
Just to go there for Chinese food.
Just to go for Chinese.
Korean, Vietnamese, great. But no Chinese.
Dad's Chinese food. Or go to Ohio for the day. It's just the sense of adventure. I feel like definitely comes from me.
So wait, was there a literal sandwich or it's a figurative?
There was an actual sandwich.
There was.
There's a story about that sandwich. Okay. I had been rehearsing all day. This was when I was in grad school, and I was exhausted. And he met me up front, and I don't know. I didn't know what was going on, what time of day. I'd walked out, and I was like, "Where am I?" And then from the light walks my husband towards me with this delicious sandwich from Darwin's in Boston. It's like a pesto turkey sandwich, and he was just like, "Here, I thought you might want a sandwich." And I burst out crying because I was so exhausted and hungry, and he just showed up with the sandwich.
Wow. I get it.
It was a beautiful moment.
That's touching.
You just knew.
He just knew I was hungry.
I burned the garlic bread on my first date with my wife.
That's hot.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Literally hot.
Our first date was at a place called the, what was it called? The Turf Club. It was in San Diego. It was called the Turf and Supper Club, an old 1950s little bar joint with the red leather seats and the the bar that meanders around the building and the piano bar. And they have one little grill inside where you can order and cook up steaks and veggies and stuff. And so we went there, and we were just talking and so engrossed in conversation that I forgot about the garlic bread that I had put on the grill. And when I went, I had to ask, I'm like, excuse me, I'm on my first date. Is there any chance I could get another garlic bread? And they were very kind about it. So, yeah, but that was a fun date. And we actually went back not that long ago to the same place. And there is something. Yes, we have a reserved sign that
is so cute. The reserved table. The sign for the reserved table.
Yeah.
Aww.
But, there's those places like going back home that you just, the feeling inside brings so much joy and happiness.
Definitely.
That it makes it extra special. So.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
That sign you can use for anything now. It's like, I don't know, do you still use the reserve, like in your house? Like,
so far, the coffee
reserved.
table has been reserved for 8 months. And the people who are supposed to be here that have the reservation haven't showed up. So I feel like my wife and I are just kind of
stealing
keeping it
the
warm.
table.
No, we're keeping it warm.
That's cute. You could have a lot of fun with that. I like it.
I'm curious how.
I don't know.
You're the adventurer. I'm like, really?
I just see so many possibilities with that reserved sign.
Do you? I'm asking my wife off mic.
I was the one that said, honey, I want to take this home. And you're like, don't take that home. We don't need that. And I was like, no, I think it'd be really cute for us to have since we had our first date here.
Aww.
And then finally he ignored me long enough for me to go, okay, he knows I'm going to do it.
So how much did you pay for the sign?
$0.
So we left a good tip.
Oh, that's good. I love it. I feel like I would use it to like reserve like a sandwich in the fridge. Like, don't touch my food.
Oh.
We should totally take it to restaurants.
And
put
just-
it on the table.
Yeah,
That's
or the
a good
food
hack.
court, or the.
But what if they go and take it like, what is this doing here? And then they grab it.
This doesn't even match our brand. What is this?
Or put in line at Comic-Con, and then hey,
line.
The sign says
No. Oh, yeah. One of the lines that's cordoned off, you put it on top of an orange cone.
Yes. Or the movie theaters. Whatever.
Theater.
That's gold,
How
man.
about on a freeway? In a lane.
Parking spot.
reserved lane. Yeah.
Reserved lane.
Reserved lane. From my bed to the office.
All right. Here's another interesting thing that you wrote. Restless artist, unsure of how to move my career forward, yet itching to perform. I dug up an old assignment from school and took it to a writing class. 2 years later, it turned into my one-person play. And the play changed me as an artist and brought a big shift in my career. So I want to hear this story about how an old writing assignment can have an impact in your life.
So when I was in school, we had this assignment in which everyone in class had to write a 10-minute story from their lives, and you could only do it with no props, just you, your body, and space. That's it. And so I had written this story about an experience I had when I was in 3rd grade. I had a crush on this one kid, and at the time, there was some obvious class differences where, he clearly came from a poor background, but he was also really popular. He was just like this cool kid, and I was not cool in 3rd grade. And so I wanted to get his attention, and I did some crazy stuff. Like I belted out. I was singing a song from Grease, Olivia Newton-John's like "Hopelessly Devoted" or whatever, and he looked at me like, what is going on? So there was some really pathetic stuff going on. So I wrote that 10-minute piece, and then after I'd moved to LA, I found myself, a bit lost. I didn't know how to get representation. I didn't know what to do with my career, and I felt creatively stifled. So I decided, you know what? Let me just take a writing class. Maybe I'll just feel better. I signed up for the class, and the first assignment was to write a piece and bring it to class, and then you were going to share it. Of course, the day of the class, 3 hours before, I was like, oh, shit. I I haven't written anything. I have nothing. What am I going to do? So I was like, I'm going to cheat a little bit. What about that one story that I wrote in school, years ago? So I dug it out, took it to the class, and people really liked it, and they had more questions. So I kept answering questions each week, and then it started to grow. And then eventually that became my one-woman show, which is called Take Me to the Poorhouse. And it's about a middle-class Nigerian third grader who dreams of becoming poor in order to win the love of a poor classmate who's like really popular. And that was great. We premiered at the Hollywood Fringe, sold out crowd, great reviews. Got to go to New York. Was invited off Broadway to the what's that festival called? I forget. And then won a bunch of awards. Won an NAACP nomination. Like it was surreal how that 10-minute piece had grown over the years to do this. And then that's how I met my reps, and then got into some great rooms and started booking. So it was wonderful.
Before the show, did you think that it could lead to this much?
Nope. Even when I produced the show, I produced it primarily as a creative exercise. I didn't even know my producer friends were inviting all this industry people to come see the show.
Right.
I was just like, I just need to do this. And so, I was not expecting that at all.
Wow. And so one story that you wrote in third grade and then used it.
No, one story about what happened in third grade, yeah.
And that
which is also when I ruined my eyesight, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened to me in third grade. That was a pivotal year in my life.
That's when you peaked at third grade.
I peaked at third grade.
Was this in England?
This was actually in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, okay. Did you have an English accent?
I did. It was sort of in and out. I mean, because even not so much actually, because even when we lived in England, we're living in a Nigerian household, so you're picking up your accent mainly from your family and friends.
Right.
So there'll be a bit of British accent here and there, but it was kind of mixed in. Yeah.
Have you used either an English or Nigerian accent in any of your?
I have never used a British accent. But the funny thing about British accents is when I go visit my uncle, my aunts, and everyone, I pick it up like that. But I've never used it in performance. Nigerian accents I have used though.
You have used in shows.
I've used them in shows, yeah. Nigerian, Liberian, various West African dialects, African dialects in general.
So you have African dialects and knowledge in medicine. I mean, you're like...
teaching.
And chicken...
So if
or
you
poultry
need
handling.
a Nigerian lab technician who also teaches at a community college on the weekends
about poultry...
about poultry handling,
handling.
I am your girl.
That sounds like a Marvel character. Right there. Superhero.
Poultry handler with a P on her chest.
Now, is this also listed on the bottom of your acting
Yes,
resume?
it is.
As special skills?
Yes, it is. Sure enough.
Do you do magic? That's the one thing I want to ask was, what is it about performance? Is it the expression, being able to express yourself creatively? Is it the audience and them, reacting to what you've produced? What is it that really turns you on? And
That's a great question. I think it's the event of it. I mean, the audience's presence definitely feels like part of the chemistry. I mean, to perform in front of an audience is a whole nother level of just synchronicity and just, connection. And it's very primal for me, the way it feels. It's that, sitting in front of the fire and sharing with the tribe and it's just such a, I don't know, I feel alive. I hate to sound so cliche, but that's exactly what it feels like. It just feels, liberating.
I mean, that's kind of a lot. I mean, that's why we do what we do.
Right. I mean, improv was doing it in front of an audience of 2 or 3 people is a different vibe than an audience of 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But-
doing something that you've always felt like you were good at,
Yeah.
and to have an audience kind of validate that.
Right. But I also noticed, as much as we were like, there's 3 people in the room, do we want to perform? Once you started performing, you invited them and it became more intimate.
Yes.
It becomes an intimate show, and
Yeah.
you are now performing in
And
front of
Yeah.
a couple friends.
Exactly, and it becomes about that small group of people, you and your tiny tribe together.
Right.
And I feel like it's also there's always so much. You're always on the edge, right?
Yes.
You surprise yourself. Things come out of your mouth like, "What did I just say?" It's just all. It's so magical.
Yeah.
So when you're on Love now and you perform, but now you have several months before anyone will say anything, even if they catch you at all.
Right.
Now, how does that feel?
Well, you mean like as compared to theater?
Right.
You know, the joy of it comes in the room itself when you're performing it. You're right, because you don't even see the take until it's out. You don't even know, like, there's a lot of great improv we did that didn't make the cut for whatever reason.
What are they going to use?
Yeah, what are they going to use? Are they going to use that one take where I know I definitely, sucked? But the people on Love, oh my gosh, Paul Rust is such a fun person to improvise with because he's just so there. And very quick, but also really relaxed. Mm-hmm. So it's a great room that you just feel like you're vibing together,
And it doesn't seem like every show has room for improv. I mean, you have scripted lines,
definitely. Yeah.
So unlike improv, you're having to honor the writers, but they're also allowing you time to play.
Yes, there are lots of takes we'll do everything with the lines, and then we'll do some takes where we just improvise around the line and the subject matter of the line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when improv, I think, is great when you're throwing your stuff out there and they're responding back to you. They heard what you said and they're responding in kind, and now you got this groove going with your fellow actor.
Exactly.
Has there ever been a show you've been in, either theater or TV or film, where you remember thinking to yourself, like, I want to pinch myself at the moment? Like that moment where you just look at a wall or a seat or a camera, and just for a second, you're no longer the actor, you're the person going, what
Look
the
at
heck
me.
am I doing here? This is what I wanted.
Yeah. I had that when Judd Apatow walked in the room when we were filming our scene. And I was like, I'm sorry. Did Judd Apatow just walk and stand on the wall like it's no big deal? Like, you're just standing like it's no big deal, Judd? Like,
So you would all Christian Bale on him, right?
you're all like, a person?
Were the cameras rolling? Or
I know, what the hell's going on? But it was so surreal because it was like, hey, we're making something together.
Yeah.
It was a community. It wasn't about, and that made me think, man, look what it took to be sitting here to do this and for it to now feel normal, but at the same time, exciting.
Yeah. I mean, we've just scratched the surface and we talked about just 5 things that changed your life.
Right.
But all of them, even like medicine or poultry handling, all of these still become knowledge and come into play, which I find fascinating.
And a lot of credit to you guys because it was a really interesting exercise. Because at first I was like, 5 things? I don't know. And then when I read the email and said, actually, we want you to do 10. And then I was like, oh, crap. Now I really got to think about this. But it was really fun. I started to see, man, what a journey life is and how the texture of our lives are so different, but so unique and so full of, sorrow and joy and love. And it's such a wonderful mixed bag of amazing things that we go through as human beings.
It is.
So I love this idea. I think you guys have really created a really cool concept that's fun for both the visitor, the person you're interviewing, and for yourselves too.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
We're so
Thank you, Les.
oh my God, what do we do with accolades?
It's all verbal.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you for having
on
me.
this
This was a
show.
blast.
I can imagine the Academy Awards. There she is. Nigerian poultry farmer.
The poultry handling lab technician.
lab technician who has to conduct open heart surgery on a traveling stranger.
I don't know. I could see you getting an Emmy for this.
That would be fun.
Or just the whole EGOT, the Grammy and the Tony for it as well.
Yeah.
Would you do a Tony? Would you take a Tony?
I'd totally take a Tony.
You would.
I've got room on my shelf for a Tony.
Okay. How about a People's Choice?
I'll take them all. It's all good.
Would you take a Blockbuster Music Award?
I feel like that would look really bad on my career.
Or the
It's
Razzie.
like, you got to say no to some things,
You
man.
do have to say no. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
My thanks, as always, to my co-host and producer, Alan Ing, and to this week's guest, Liz Femi. Liz is a Los Angeles-based actor who recently appeared in Judd Apatow's Netflix series Love and guest starred opposite David Duchovny in NBC's Aquarius. She's the writer and performer of the award-winning comedic solo show Take Me to the Poorhouse, and is currently in production on the Netflix feature A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which comes out in 2017. You can follow Liz on Twitter and Instagram at Liz Femi. That's LizFemi. You can visit Liz at her website at lizfemi.com. You can follow us online at fivethingspodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/fivethingspodcast. That's FIVE. Or on Twitter at fivethingspod. That's FIVEPOD. Thank you also to our sound engineer, Sammy Junio, of the Hello Lionface Podcast Network. Music by My Monthly Date. Subscribe to 5 Things That Changed Your Life on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. And go ahead and leave us a nice review if you'd like. For 5 Things That Changed Your Life, I'm Lauren Kling.